As you know by now, there was a horrific terror attacks against innocent Israeli citizens this weekend. Israel is responding to Hamas, and we're going to be going through some of the most outrageous and infuriating reactions here at home in America. Stay with us. Yeah, somehow in New York City, an organized protest was put together within 24 hours of those attacks where pro-Palestinian, and let's just be clear here, if at this point you're waving the Palestinian flag and making excuses for murder and kidnapping and rape, then you're well beyond pro-Palestinian. You're pro-terror. And that's exactly what happened in New York City within 24 hours of these attacks. Our own Julio Rosa, senior writer from Town Hall, on a moment's notice, grabbed his gear and headed straight up to Manhattan to grab some phenomenal footage. And we're going to go through his timeline. By the way, if you're not following Julio, you can see it right there. It's Julio_Rosas 11. Julio, of course, capturing the scene right there in Times Square. And we'll begin with one of the first videos we saw from him.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Yeah, they've got all their printed posters and signs out. They've got all their flags right. There's a huge number of people, hundreds of people there. I just want to be clear on what they're saying here. You get the chant, right? From the river to the sea.
From the river to the sea.
By the way, why are these people wearing scarves around their face? COVID's over. There's no reason to wear a face mask in public anymore. And those aren't face masks to protect people from a virus. They're covering their identity. In fact, they're dressed. Look at this guy. Did you see this guy? This guy right here. Here, with the kippah. Here, see that? See that guy right there? That guy right there looks like one of the terrorists. He's purposely dressed himself up like one of the people who just murdered innocent people. Israelis in Israel. But back to the chant.
To the sea. Palestine will be free.
Yeah, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Make no mistake what that means. If you ever hear that, I've even heard Congress people say this. You know, people like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar say things like that. From the river to the sea. Understand what that means. Israel's eastern border is the Jordan River. That's the river. And the western border of Israel is the Mediterranean Sea. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. What that means is eradicate Israel. Remove Israel from the map. If Palestine will be free from the river to the sea, it means they want Israel gone. And that is, in fact, what they want. That's what we saw. So be very clear on what you're hearing when you hear that. And it's incredibly terrifying to hear it chanted openly like this. Zionism is genocide. Defend Palestine. Yeah, Palestine is what needs defending right now after the worst mass murder of innocent Jews really since the Holocaust.
Resistance is justified. And people are occupied.
When people are occupied, resistance is justified. They're literally they're calling this resistance, these murders, rapes, kidnappings, and they're justifying it under the guise of occupation. By the way, let's be clear here. If you don't know your history, and sadly these days people don't, look it up. Since 2014, Gaza, where these attacks came from, has not been occupied. Palestinian Authority and Hamas, they've been able to do whatever the hell they want. Israel has had no presence there. The only time they've ever breached into Gaza was to react to a rocket attack or another murderous terror attack. They're not occupied. But see, this isn't about Gaza or the West Bank. As far as they're concerned, as long as the nation of Israel exists, they are being occupied because they think it's their land. That's what they're chanting. By any means necessary. Look at the sign. By any means necessary. In fact, what that means is if we have to murder every innocent person, we will, which is certainly what they demonstrated.
And paraglided across colonial borders.
Listen to the cheers here from this woman. Let me start it from the top.
Early morning on Saturday, October 7th, our resistance stormed illegal settlements and paraglided across colonial borders.
They're cheering the mass murder in New York City, in Times Square. By the way, where's the FBI? Last I checked, the FBI has grandma on a list if she walked through an open door on January 6 years ago. Last I checked, the FBI has a watch list of moms and dads who go to school board meetings to express their outrage over policies in the government-run schools. But these people can literally cheer on terrorists in the open.
Around Gaza, Karim Abu Salim.
All right.
In this operation, an Aqsa flood, the resistance fires more than 5,000 rockets.
Big cheer for firing 5,000 rockets into Israel. And now I want you to, just from this video from Julio, and again, a great job, Julio Rosa from Town Hall, getting all of these videos. Take a look at the scale of this protest right down the middle of Times Square. That is truly immense. Again, I got to ask the question: how did this get organized so quickly after these attacks? How do they bring out sound system and a little setup there? Here's another moment of the crowd.
The media will tell you that yesterday terrorists invaded Israel. But we know that actually what happened is that the oppressed people of Palestine broke out of the open-air prison that they have been.
Yeah, it wasn't terrorists. It was the oppressed people of Palestine, which is not a place, actually. It doesn't exist. All right, enough of that. Great job, Julio Rosas. But that's what happened in New York City yesterday. And if that doesn't outrage you enough, stick with us because we've got a lot more. That woman there, by the way, on the speaker, she will be probably the next congressperson from New York whenever there's an opening. All right, let's get to this next one. This is now in front of the White House in Washington, D.C. Here we go. I'm doing well.
Palestinian forces took over police barracks and military checkpoints, while prisons were stormed to free those being held. Others seized Zionist military equipment, killed dozens of soldiers, and took many soldiers hostage in the hopes of bargaining for the further freedom over 5,200 Palestinian political prisoners. Hamas, the elected governing party of Gaza, launched a barrage of missiles.
Hold on. Did you catch that? Hamas, the elected governing party of Gaza. Hold on. I thought they were occupied. I thought they were oppressed. I thought this was like apartheid. How do they have an elected governing body of their territory in Gaza if this is apartheid? But more importantly, you heard the cheers there. Literally the cheers for hostage taking. Let's just keep plowing through here. This is now. Oh, this is a beautiful one. This is in Barcelona, Spain. Again, where do all of these protests show up spontaneously after these attacks? Within 24 hours, you've got all of them. But my favorite part here is that you've got LGBTQ flags flying. Look at the rainbow flag. Right. All right, who wants to tell them? Who wants to tell them what happens to gay people in a Palestinian government? Who wants to tell them what the laws are right there in the occupied territories, as they call them, in the West Bank and in Gaza, with regard to being out and flying that rainbow flag? I assure you, when they get rid of Israel and the Palestinian Caliphate takes over, It's not going to go well for the gays. I'd like to think that they're stupid, but I think that it's actually worse than that. All right. We need to cleanse with some positivity, some good news. Well, not good news, but at least some good reactions. All right. How about this one? Out of New York City, the Empire State Building. It's a beautiful image as it is lit up at night in the colors of the Israeli flag in honor of our brothers and sisters, our most important allies on the planet, the only functioning democracy in the Middle East. That's a nice thing to see, that sometimes New York City gets it right. And even more impressive, in Germany, not a country with the best track record when it comes to relations with the Jewish people in general, let alone Israelis. Thousands of Germans in Brandenburg Gate singing and praying for the Israeli people. I don't know about you, and I want to say this as we just sort of went through all of the outrageous, disgusting, despicable, frankly evil things that happened on the ground in New York City after these attacks. You see something like this in Germany. There's something so incredibly intoxicating and beautiful about seeing common decency displayed by human beings in the times that we're living in. When you see it, it's almost jarring because we're so used to the worst in people. We're so used to seeing the worst in people. And that scene from Germany, if it doesn't affect you emotionally, it's amazing. A couple of other great moments in humankind this weekend in the face of these horrific attacks. This one from an unlikely spot in Tehran, Iran. Now, they love football there, soccer. And there was a soccer match the evening after these terror attacks, and the Iranian government displayed Palestinian flags all over the football stadium while the people were watching this soccer game, and a chant broke out in Farsi from the crowd spontaneously, and we have the translation here so you can see exactly what they were saying. It's pretty great. So hang on, let me get it set up here. Shove that Palestinian flag up your... It makes me want to learn Farsi just so I can chant it along with them. And that comes from Iran. Iran is the country who helped coordinate, plan, and finance these attacks. Well, I mean, they financed it with assistance of the Biden administration and their dollars, but we'll save that discussion for another day. But that, again, when human beings display basic compassion and humanity, it's intoxicating. It gives you hope at a time when we don't have hope. When we see those attacks, you see the videos of the horrific attacks from this weekend in Israel that makes you sick to your stomach and brings tears gushing out of your eyes. And then you see the people of Iran saying, "Take your Palestinian flag and shove it up your where it needs to be shoved." That's great. That's great. Speaking of football, American football, real football, the Washington Commanders, the NFL football team here in Washington, D.C., actually was the first to put out their own statement. "We stand with the people of Israel and join them in mourning the hundreds of innocent lives lost to terrorism at the hands of Hamas. Stand with Israel." I wish I could say members of Congress for the Democrats could say something that unequivocal. And yes, I know some of them did, but I'm talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. If I showed you Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Twitter feed right now, it would be empty. It's as if nothing happened. Forget about some people did something. She hasn't said anything in over 2 days on social media. This is a woman who lives more on social media than she does on the floor of the House of Representatives. And yet she's had nothing to say. She couldn't even bring herself to say this. And those who did say something, they said that Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, made it sound like, some people did something. "Oh, we condemn violence of all kinds," which is a keyword, a dog whistle of saying, both sides are guilty here. Here's a football team, the Washington Commanders, who get it right, righter than elected Democrats in this country. Period. This is Hamas's fault. Stand with Israel. They weren't the only ones, actually. I'm happy to say the NFL writ large, after the Washington Commanders put out their statement, they joined. "NFL mourns the loss of innocent lives in Israel and strongly condemns all forms of terrorism. The depravity of these acts is beyond comprehension. We grieve with the families of those killed, injured, and still missing. We pray for peace and will always stand against evils and hate." Thank you. And the reason why I bring this up and I want to share it with you is because, we get tired of our sports teams getting political, right? It's like, take your politics, especially your divisive politics. We don't want that. We want to watch a football game. I get that. I do. Trust me. But this isn't political. This is something that we can all rally behind. If you don't agree with that, there's something wrong with you. And the NFL, if they get it right, it's worth doing. Which brings us to NBA legend Amari Stoudemire. Remember Amari Stoudemire? Great player. Haven't heard from him much recently. Well, the events of the weekend, the terror attacks against Israel, inspired Amari Stoudemire not only to announce how much he is standing with the people of Israel, but he had a little something to say about Black Lives Matter. Stick with this one. This is...
I woke up, man, this morning with some disturbing news out of Israel. The Hamas kidnapping children, putting them in cages, killing women, killing the elderly. That's some coward shit. That's cowardly. And for all y'all Black Lives Matter who ain't saying nothing, well, let me figure out exactly what happened before I say anything. You. Figure out what? It ain't never been cool to kidnap kids and put them in cages. It ain't never been cool to kill women and elderly. Never been. No matter where you from, what you represent, what tribe you for, don't matter. There ain't never been no cool. There ain't never been none that nobody supported. And then you go and hide and put the kids in front of you as a barricade. That's some coward shit. All you politicians who always have something to say on the contrary, I see you. F you. All you Black Lives Matter people who always have something to say and always supported everything else and you quiet now, f you too. Only place in the world where I can go and study Torah and eat kosher food. Only place in the world. Some coward shit, dog. And all y'all supported, f you. On my mama, we don't respect none of y'all for that. Peace.
Do like ending it with peace. Yeah, a little bit more of that, please. That takes guts and courage, sadly, to make a bold statement like that. And thank God we heard it from a former NBA player. Where's LeBron James? He's so right. Politicians and Black Lives Matter leaders and everything is, oh, we don't have a statement yet. We're still assessing the situation. What the hell is there to assess? I can't even add to it. Amari STM, thank you. I think you said it all. I think your reaction is resonating in our minds. So what was the Biden administration doing when all of this happened? First of all, it took hours to even get a statement from President Biden. The president of France had a statement out before our president did. That's embarrassing. You almost got a sense that they were trying to get their act together. All right, what's our story going to be? They're so used to that. You know, anytime anything happens, well, let's just make sure that we're not caught in a lie or anything. There's plenty to criticize the Biden administration about here, not least of which $6 billion that got funneled over to Iran just a few weeks ago, which of course emboldened them to be able to take money out of their treasury and spend it on these attacks, which is exactly what they did. They've bragged about it. They boasted about it. The leader of Hamas admitted to it as well. And yet somehow Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State in the Biden administration, says, well, we're still waiting to see evidence that Iran was involved. Iran just said they were involved. Meanwhile, we have Americans, U.S. citizens, held hostage by Hamas. We've got multiple Americans murdered in these attacks. So what did the Biden administration do Sunday night to acknowledge this solemn situation? Well, we turn to our own Katie Pavlich and her write-up Sunday night at Town Hall. Yep, there you have it. They had a barbecue at the White House. They had a big old party for staffers. There was a band. The only reason people knew about this was because there were reporters who camp out at the White House all the time, and they heard a live band at the White House. And so they asked the comms people, what's going on? Why are we hearing a live band? Oh, well, there's a barbecue party for White House staffers. What? While they're still counting the dead? While we're waiting for American hostages to be released and trying to put pressure on these murderous thugs to let our people go, let alone showing some reverence and respect for our closest allies, the Israelis, who are dealing with. Let's turn to Peter Doocy at Fox News Channel, who covered the big barbecue and party they were having at the White House. Let's hear it.
I had nothing to say about this on camera today. We did hear some music throughout the afternoon and the early evening coming from the south side of the White House, the area of the Rose Garden or the portico over there. And we are told that the president and the first lady were hosting a barbecue for executive residence staff. Back to you.
I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. But I'm thinking if, 24, 36 hours after a terror attack where American lives are still hanging in the balance and being held as hostages by international terrorists, and the Trump administration or the Bush administration or the Reagan administration or pretty much any Republican administration, if they were having a barbecue party, maybe there'd be some criticisms from the media other than, right here. And speaking of the media, MSNBC decided to take their cameras to a town in Illinois that calls themselves Little Palestine to get a little man on the street reaction to these attacks. And let's see how it went.
The response was not unexpected because, provocations day after day, time after time. It was nonstop, and it seems like the Netanyahu government is not willing to bring any peace to the region.
For me, it was kind of conflicting because
Wait, Netanyahu is not interested in bringing peace to the region. The only time there isn't peace between these two factions is when Palestinians murder innocent Israelis. Fact. It's been said before, but it needs to be said again. If the Palestinians put down all of their weapons and acknowledged Israel's right to exist and never committed another act of violence against Israelis, there would be everlasting peace. They'd have their own state. For God's sake, Israel's already said that. Sure, you can have the land and you can have your own autonomy over the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. All you've got to do is acknowledge our right to exist. All you've got to do is promise not to kill us. They can't bring themselves to do that. They can't bring themselves to do that. If they did, if they laid down their arms, every single one of them would live a free, perfect life. Meanwhile, if the Israelis laid down their weapons, they'd be slaughtered. But it's Netanyahu's fault, and there's that guy in Chicago saying, well, it's to be expected. But now there's this guy.
I'm half Palestinian, my mom's half American, so it was like it's conflicting for me because you have people in there and innocent bystanders that'll be involved in it, but at the same time, it's like, what other choice did they have?
If you're conflicted by this, you have a serious issue with your moral compass. I don't care if you're so what if you're half Palestinian? If you're 100% Palestinian, morality is morality, no matter what your ethnic bloodline is. Oh, sure, innocent people were involved, but what other choice do they have? These are Americans who are saying this. I bet you any money this guy's got a college education. He learned that on a campus, liberal arts college in America. And one last thing, watch how the reporter reacts.
So again, that's the perspective that we're including from this part of our country. Again, this is a vibrant Palestinian community in suburban Chicago. I should note most of the people that we met last night did not want to talk.
That's the reaction that we're including here. Did you notice that there was no moral judgment from the reporter? There was no rolling of the eyes. There was no throwing it back to the studio and having them tut and say, oh, what is this country coming to? Yeah, I only say that because I've seen MSNBC cover a Trump rally and talk to MAGA hat wearing Republicans and getting them on camera to say things about the border wall or about Democrats or about the rigged election. And you go back to the studio, it's like, well, can you believe these morons? Can you believe how horrible these people are? None of that. None of that for the people in Little Palestine, Illinois, who just excused the murder of over 800 innocent people. And American citizens, I want to reiterate, who are currently being held captive. All right, more. This one, and I've had criticism for this guy, so let's go ahead and give him some kudos, I suppose. Jonathan Greenblatt, the head of the Anti-Defamation League, who actually pushed back on NBC Live while he was on the air.
Tell us, if you will, just what these last few days have been like for you and why it's so important that you are appearing here today with the Reverend Sharpton.
Well, so I will be honest and maybe a little more vulnerable than I normally would be. These have been some of the hardest days of my adult life. I don't ever remember a moment like this. I have family in Israel right now under siege and being deployed to the front lines. I have staff who can't locate their family. I have friends who are gone.
I want to let him finish, and this is important. This is an important moment because if you don't know who Jonathan Greenblatt is, and the American Anti-Defamation League used to be a stalwart organization who pushed back against anti-Semitism and racism and discrimination, but mostly anti-Semitism. That's why they were created back in the 1920s, before the Holocaust, actually. And they've been fantastic, nonpartisan. This guy was an Obama administration official, and he got this job after the Obama presidency. And he has transformed the Anti-Defamation League to spend the majority of its time, and I'm not kidding, you can go to their website and you can run a search on their news items. They have spent the majority of their time attacking Republicans, conservatives, Trump supporters, recently going after Elon Musk because he opened up X.com for more freedom and more opinions, attacked Chaya Reichek, the Orthodox Jewish woman who runs Libs of TikTok, and spent most of their time lately speaking out against so-called discrimination against transgender individuals. they've gone so far off the path of what they're supposed to. So the only reason I bring this up at this moment, when he is clearly emotional and reacting to the events in Israel, is that maybe this will actually be a wake-up call. Maybe Mr. Greenblatt and his board at the Anti-Defamation League will actually refocus their energies on what the real reason the ADL, was created, and where the real threat here is. The real racist threat, the real hate groups out there, not parents who were concerned about the curriculum in our schools about transgender. I'm sorry for digressing, but it had to be said because this is what this guy has been doing for the last several years.
And I think Ambassador Danone put it well in a context that Americans can understand. 9/11, the evil that was perpetrated here. But the scale, Jonathan, the right comparison is Nagasaki. This was like an atomic bomb. And as 40,000 people were killed in Japan when they dropped that bomb in Nagasaki, so too were the hundreds upon hundreds of people who were killed in Israel. And so while I am sad and trying to cope, I'll be honest, I am angry. I am angry with the world that allowed the dehumanization of Israelis and sanitized the terrorism of Hamas. I must say, I love this show and I love this network, but I've got to ask, who is writing the scripts? Hamas, the people who did this, they are not fighters, Jonathan. They are not militants. And I'm looking right at the camera. They are terrorists. It is a barbarian who rapes and brutalizes women, who kills children in front of their parents, and then brings them over to Gaza, who literally, we've heard all these reports, and we know these aren't just reports. These were filmed gleefully by the barbarians who committed these grotesque crimes. They filmed, for example, an elderly woman in her home in one of these towns. They burned her alive in her house because she was too infirm to take out. And, parading women, bleeding from the crotch because they were raped throughout Gaza while people hoot and holler and cheer. So look, when we say, oh, this was an escalation, it was bound to happen, I am sorry. This was a massacre that was pre-planned. This was not destined to happen. It is not normal to shoot teenagers in the back, hundreds of them. So I just think, guys, get the story right. And all these pictures of missiles or the rubble in Gaza, please talk to the Israeli mothers and fathers who lost their children. Talk to the grandchildren whose grandparents were seized as hostages. And please stop calling this a retaliation. This is a defensive measure against an organization that is committed to one thing: killing Jews, not a peaceful resolution of a conflict, but murdering Jews. And it's
powerful stuff. By the way, look at the Chiron. While he's talking, 700 Israelis, 560 Palestinians killed, as if there's some equivalence there. I'm sorry, MSNBC, how many of the 560 Palestinians killed were actually murderers themselves? How many of them were engaged in the initial attacks? That's despicable. Good job, Jonathan Greenblatt, there, calling them out in real time on it. Okay, how about, this is, again, from NBC, where apparently the real story is not the embarrassing and hapless response from the Biden administration. It's Republicans pouncing and gaining advantage.
President Trump and other GOP rivals have pounced on the Biden administration foreign policy, saying this is a sign of weakness. Former President Trump and other GOP rivals have pounced on the Biden administration foreign policy, saying this is a sign of weakness.
That's the story. That's the story from MSNBC, from NBC News. That's Meet the Press now. The story here is that Republicans are pouncing. All right. I know we're going a little long, but this is powerful stuff, and I want to share it with you. I'm going to be honest with you. I have a whole host of videos here of Israelis who have been terrorized in the midst of being terrorized, and um, I think I want to save that for another time. Honestly, I think that we've seen so much. I want to end on a on a moment of clarity, if we could. If I could share this with you. Um, this is from our friend Andrew Clavin from our sister site, PJ Media, back in the day. Because the fact of the matter is, this is not, sadly, this is not a new situation. This is not. This has been going on for eons, actually. But specifically to the latest couple of decades of terror attacks against Israelis and then Israelis trying to defend themselves. This was what, from 12 years ago, I think. Or maybe 10 years ago. Andrew Clavin sort of clarifies it for us all.
This is Andrew Clavin on the culture. Today, Clavin on the Culture offers a brief course of sensitivity training in how to behave during an Islamic massacre. You see, people tend to act according to their beliefs, and in our global multicultural society, we have to learn to get along with those who have different beliefs and therefore act differently than we do. For instance, in the past, when juvenile attention seekers desecrated Christian religious objects by displaying a crucifix and a glass of urine, say, or smearing dung on an image of the Virgin Mary, or filming a crucifix with ants crawling over it, Christians in America protested by demanding these images cease to receive public funding. Similarly, when juvenile attention seeker Terry Jones recently burned a copy of the Quran, Muslims in Afghanistan protested by slaughtering and beheading more than 20 innocent people. This subtle difference between Christian and Islamic modes of communication can cause misunderstandings and make it difficult for Christians to respond in a sensitive and unprejudiced way. So, here are some tips. First, abandon all your principles. Defending ideals like individual liberty and freedom of expression can be offensive to others and dangerous to yourself. Instantly discarding not only your own beliefs, but those that uphold Western culture specifically and human dignity in general can save time by eliminating unnecessary intermediate steps like pretending all religions are equally sound or pasting a coexist bumper sticker on your sad, wimpy little car. Let's watch as Senator Lindsey Graham demonstrates how to throw your principles overboard.
Free speech is a great idea, but we're in a war.
Here's another tip. Holding homicidal Muslims responsible for their savage brutality will only annoy them and could cause you to be accused of Islamophobia, the irrational fear of being decapitated. Instead of blaming Muslims for their actions, try to treat them as subhumans with no moral agency. If they had no choice but to go on a kill spree, the only real fault lies with the man who provoked them. Here's Joe Klein of Time magazine showing the way by writing about Quran burner Terry Jones. Jones's act was murderous as any suicide bombers. Note how Klein assumes the Muslims' bloodthirsty response to Jones was inevitable, as if Muslims were uncontrollable beasts with no wills of their own. This assumption allows Klein to morally equate Jones's crude and unkind act with Muslim mass murder and display his own sensitivity and open-mindedness to mass murder. We all must learn that confronting evil can lead to violence. With just a little intellectual dishonesty and some unprincipled sniveling, we can put an end to Islamic slaughters peacefully by eliminating their cause, our freedom.
Andrew Clavin is the best for a reason. All right. And how about one more, just to leave it on a bit of a, I don't want to say up note, because there is no up note to this, but the late, great Joan Rivers, when asked about Israel reacting to a terror attack back in 2014. I remember how, the left and movie stars and people in the media and the ladies at the table at The View are always complaining about Israel's disproportionate attack. Oh, yeah. Well, Joan Rivers was having none of it when she was asked about that. And let's end with a great Joan Rivers.
I'm trying to get celebrity reactions to what's going on with the Palestinians and Israelis right now.
Let me just tell you, if New Jersey were firing rockets into New York, we would wipe them out. I am so bored. We heard they were digging tunnels from New Jersey to New York. We would get rid of Jersey. So I don't want to hear anymore. Oh, we'll do a partial truce. The Palestinians, you cannot throw rockets and expect people not to defend themselves.
What about the civilian casualty rate?
Civilian, then don't put your goddamn things in private homes. I'm sorry. Don't you dare put weapon stashes in private homes, and then we say get out. Of course, we're going to do it.
The response normally is where are the civilians supposed to go?
I don't care. They started it. You're all insane. They started it. What are you all saying? They started it. The Israelis did not throw their... For months this has been going on.
How do you resolve
What are you supposed to do?
How do you resolve
How do I know? Because I have been over there. That's how I know. And I wish the world would know. And BBC should be ashamed of themselves. And CNN should be ashamed of themselves. And everybody, stop it already.
You know, like Dwight Howard tweeted, "Free Palestine, take it back." Selena Gomez tweeted a pro-Gaza.
Oh, Selena
Yeah,
Gomez. Oh, yeah, that college grad.
All right, John, thank you. John, thank you so much.
Well, if Selena said that. Yeah.
Then Rihanna has to take it back.
Tell her, let's see if she can spell Palestinian.
I'll ask her right now. We love you.
Thanks, Joan. Have a great day.
It's hard to smile on days like this, but it's days like this when we need Joan Rivers more than ever. I miss her. And why can't anyone from our government, our Biden administration, be as unequivocal, moral, and logical and plain spoken as that? They started it. You got a problem with civilians being killed? Then don't put your military assets with the civilians. All right. We're going to leave it at that. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and promote and share if you can. We're going to obviously be continuing to cover the events in Israel for the next several days as this unfolds. And that and other news of the day, every single day, right here where you're watching us. I'm Larry O'Connor. Thanks.